You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Dan Zarzana.
And I'm Jeff Garvin.
Let the journey begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Hero's Journey, a different kind of entertainment podcast where we analyze your favorite books and films through the lens of Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey monomyth. And we also cling desperately to Christopher Vogler's modern take, like poor Jack Dawson to Rose's Door. If you are the reading type, we strongly recommend reading The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell and The Writer's Journey by Vogler. Those are the two texts that we use as our Bible here.
Mm-hmm.
While not required reading to follow our narrative, we think you'll appreciate their discussions, especially if you enjoy different perspectives on the creative process and how stories are told. And speaking of stories, now Jeff is going to tell us about Kevin Costner's storied career.
That was possibly your worst segue ever on this podcast.
Agreed. Not my finest work. But this film isn't Costner's finest work either, so I'm really on brand here. I think I deserve some credit. Oh, FY information, this is Costner's second appearance on The Hero's Journey.
That's right, welcoming back the Kev.
Back in 2018, these many years ago, we discussed Field of Dreams, an episode that one listener said made her cry in an airport. So give that a listen, won't you? Okay, Jeff of Fullerton, you speak now.
Beginning with his breakout role in Silverado in 1985, Kevin Costner...
I love that movie. Why haven't we done Silverado yet? Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Kevin Costner enjoyed a decade as one of Hollywood's most successful leading men. At the height of his stardom, Costner took home 2 Academy Awards in 1990 for his directorial debut, Dances with Wolves, which I have still never seen.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
Is that by design or...
I missed it in the theater. I was pretty young, 13 when it came out. And then I think it was a double VHS cassette, and I just never wanted to rent it because it was so long. So after Dances with Wolves, a year later, Costner starred in his second biggest film of 1991, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is also Kevin Costner's second most successful film after Dances with Wolves. Released in theaters on June 14, 1991, so it just celebrated its 30th anniversary. Wow. Yeah. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves earned a global box office take of more than $390 million.
Yeah.
Only Terminator 2 Judgment Day earned more at the box office that year.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is directed by Kevin Reynolds, who said prior to the theatrical release of their disastrous Waterworld co-project, Costner should only appear in films that he directs. That way he can always be working with his favorite actor and favorite director. Dang.
Only one Academy Award nom was granted to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and that was to Michael Kamen, Mutt Lange, and Bryan Adams for the original song, Everything I Do, I Do It For You.
That wasn't bad. That was not bad.
You can't tell me.
Oh, jeez.
It's not worth fighting for.
No nominations for acting, though. Costner does at least 4 different accents in this film. It's extraordinary.
Ouch. Easy target, man.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed for both of us.
We'll discuss the accents throughout this film. It's all around a pretty miserable accent movie. There's nothing we can say about the performances in this film that hasn't already been said in the decade since its release, but I think we'll find some things to say. Let's focus on what we're really here to do. String your bow and fletch an arrow. Ooh, da lolly. This is the hero's journey of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Act 1 of the hero's journey begins with World of Common Day, where we meet our main character in their status quo normal life. It is the time of the Crusades, 1194 AD, precisely 800 years before you and I graduated from high school. Robin of Locksley is the son of an English lord who has traveled to the Middle East to join the Crusades. And when we meet him, he is imprisoned in Jerusalem, awaiting violent justice. while he's in this prison waiting to be mutilated, he stands up for his friend Peter, who's about to have his hand chopped off for stealing bread. And then he escapes the bonds and beats up the bad guys and frees his friend Peter, as well as a Moor named Azim, who vows to stay with him until he can save Robin's life in return. Meanwhile, back in England, King Richard's absence has left a power vacuum, and the Sheriff of Nottingham is going from town to town seizing power for himself, quashing resistance with violence.
Join us or die.
And so the sheriff, accompanied by his Death Eaters, descends on Locksley Castle, burns it, and then forces Robin's father to confess to devil worship before having him executed. That is the status quo before Robin enters his adventure.
The Sheriff of Nottingham, played in a very scene-chewingly fashion by Mr. Alan Rickman.
Oh, I love Alan Rickman. R.I.P. It's just one of the best.
He's This is certainly an Alan Rickman movie.
This is the movie where I really fell in love with him. I mean, I certainly noticed him in Die Hard, but he is having such a blast being the bad guy in this movie.
Oh wow! So this is the third Alan Rickman movie we've done.
Wow! Welcome to the Alan Rickman journey.
Morgan Freeman also plays Azim.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say
we've done like about 112% of our episodes have Morgan Freeman in them. So I want to break down Morgan Freeman's character's name when he introduces himself.
Okay.
He says, "My name is Azim ibn Bashir al-Bakir."
Mm-hmm.
And we learn later that Azim means great
one.
Great one, he says, yes. But it can also mean protector, which is apropos for the character.
Yeah.
And then Ibn means son of. Bashir is one who brings good news. So he is son of Bashir, son of one who brings great news, which I think is also appropriate because Azim is the great news to Robin, and by Azim being the son of, he has brought good news by begatting Azim. And then finally, his surname, Al-Bakir, means one who has great knowledge.
Wow.
Azim is certainly the wise man of the group, and he also has some tools under his belt that he puts to great use later on. The next segment is the call to adventure, where the hero is presented with a challenge which renders him unable to continue living in the comfort of the ordinary world. 4 months after the sacking of Locksley Castle and the execution of Lord Locksley, Robin's father, Robin and Azim have returned to England. Robin begs Azim to return home to his people because he knows what it feels like to be away from home for so long. And Azim resists and says that he has basically pledged a Wookiee life debt to Robin.
Call out to Ebon Hawk.
And only Allah can tell Azim when he has fulfilled his vow. Azim alludes to having been in prison because of a woman, and Robin bullies him into telling him her name, Jasmina.
Mm-hmm.
Robin asks, was she worth it? And Azim replies, worth dying for. I can't help it. There's nothing I want more. Ooh, little pitchy dog. I think that this, while not an obvious call to adventure, it is a foreshadowing, maybe a heralding of Robin's romantic adventure that is to come. Love worth dying for is also a theme that recurs throughout the film via Robin in his love for Marion, Little John, his love for Fanny, and then on the corrupt side of the coin, pun intended perhaps, the Sheriff of Nottingham and his love for power, and the Bishop and his love for money. The next element of the call to adventure is the rescue of Wolf, the little boy, who's being pursued by Guy of Gisborne, played so great by Michael Wincott. I love Michael Wincott. He is also a little bit scene chewy, but he's got that real gravelly voice that is sinister. I guess. I mean, he can make it sinister when he needs to.
Threatening and sinister. And I just want to pop in here a little cinema. Kevin Reynolds uses wide-angle lenses really close to faces, mostly on the villains, to like distort their image. And he does it all the time on Wincott. He is close to Wincott with a wide-angle lens, and his face is all like foreshortened and big and a gravelly voice.
Guy of Gisborne is definitely not only the cousin of the Sheriff of Nottingham, but he is also the sheriff's junkyard dog. This guy, he's the one he sends out to do his violent bidding.
Yeah.
So when Robin interferes with their pursuit of this young boy, Guy of Gisborne orders Robin killed, and then Robin is forced to defend himself, and he ends up killing 4 of the sheriff's men and embarrassing Guy of Gisborne. This puts Robin on the naughty list.
Yep.
And then the final element of Call to Adventure is Robin's homecoming. He and Azim return to Locksley Castle, find it in ruins, his father's corpse hanging from a gibbet, and the castle steward Duncan has been blinded. And Duncan tells Robin that the Sheriff of Nottingham has declared Locksley land forfeit.
Mm-hmm.
So Robin has nothing.
Refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, our hero refuses to engage in the adventure. Sometimes this energy is expressed from within the hero and sometimes from without. The first moment of refusal here is a moment of denial when Robin sees his father hanging in that cage and he yells, "No!" and turns and falls into the arms of Azim. A very vulnerable gesture for 2 men who don't know each other that well yet. Then there's refusal from without. Duncan tells Robin that Guy of Gisborne will surely seek revenge and that he should flee south to safety. And there's a little refusal from Azim, too, who refuses to let Robin go on his quest alone. He's not letting Robin be the hero. He's saying, no, we need to stick together. This is a really long movie, and a lot of the elements are packed with plot points, but I felt like the refusal, it was like 2.5 minutes of film, and then we're on to the main event here. So that's what I saw as refusal of the call.
All right, that brings us to Supernatural Aid, or The Meeting with the Mentor. This is where the hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. Or in Joseph Campbell's book, he talks about supernatural aid being the unexpected assistance that comes to one who has undertaken his proper adventure. Usually this is delivered by some sort of celestial being or fey creature or something, which is why he calls it supernatural aid. So Duncan serves as an early mentor, informing Robin of what the sheriff has done in his absence, and that his father, despite their falling out, has always believed that Robin would return home. And this this makes Robin feel even more guilty.
Yeah.
That the 2 of them didn't get to bury the hatchet before his father's death. The Sheriff of Nottingham himself has what I think is a very quintessential representation of supernatural aid when he visits the witch Mortiana.
Yes.
And she performs some street magic and tells Nottingham that the son of a dead man, Robin, precedes the Lionheart in coming home. So this tells Nottingham that King Richard has survived the Crusades and is on the way back home, which is going to throw a wrench in his plans because he is planning to bribe all the barons of the land to support him in his usurping the throne.
Yes.
And Mortiana then throws her cookie tray aside and screams, "I have seen our death, the painted man," referring to Azim, and pleads with the sheriff, kill him. Kill them both.
Yes.
That concludes the segment for me. Do you have any other elements of supernatural aid or mentor that I missed?
No, I just wanted to mention that after seeing that scene where Mortiana cracks like a blood-filled egg, I couldn't eat eggs for like a month. I was like, nope, not going to need a blood egg. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. I think it's great that they included magic in this film. And I love that they portrayed it as this gross, nasty thing. And to be a magic user, you were, a crusty old crone. And I love their relationship. It's this mentor-mentee relationship, but there's also a clear affection and intimacy between the two. And Alan Rickman's performance during this scene, he's sort of like shifting from one foot to the other and walking around her and peering into the plate and like chewing his nails. He's so great.
There's a deleted scene that helps explain the relationship between the sheriff and the witch that I believe you're going to reveal to us in the audio bonus content.
Yeah, if you're a film nerd and you haven't watched DVD commentaries or spent time researching trivia, that's one of the things we love to do, is get all the juicy stuff that doesn't end up in the film, or the casting that never happened. So if you dig that stuff, you can join the first tier as an ally and get access to all that bonus audio. Crossing the threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world, and the crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. This was a very simple moment in the film. Robin draws his dagger and slices his palm and makes a blood oath.
I will not rest until my father's avenged.
Boom, committing to the adventure.
I give Costner a lot of crap, particularly in this movie, but when he draws the dagger across his hand, he trembles. Like, damn, that hurt.
Yeah.
That tremble that you have when you sustain sudden pain. I thought that was a good performance moment by Costner.
Yeah, and I just want to say up front, I love this movie. I love this movie through and through. I know there are things about this movie that are awful. Number one being the accents, really distracting from the film. But I think Kevin Costner, 8 out of 10 scenes, he's doing great.
That concludes Act 1, Jeff. Let's head on down to the side quest at the Campbell Cafe and see what we've been up to. Jeff, since our last episode, how have you followed your bliss?
Man, I have been enjoying creative input this last month. I really needed it. I started a new writing project and I'm soaking up inspiration. So, I've been playing a ton of Grand Theft Auto, as you know, with you and the boys. It's the first time I've played a cooperative video game of this nature. It's been so much fun. Such stress relief.
It's been great having you along. For those of you who don't know, there are heists that you can conduct in the game where, bank heist, or you gotta break somebody out of prison, and they all require 4 people. And so to have 4 friends that you can do these heists with and communicate on Discord, and it's just been a ton of fun. So much fun. Even when we fail, it's fun.
And Dan has turned it into a role-playing experience. So we all have characters. He's the CEO of the firm that we're working for. It's a lot of fun. On the book front, I've read a lot, but I'm just going to highlight one. The Nest by Cynthia Dupree Sweeney. It's the story of 4 siblings who stand to inherit money from their parents when the youngest turns 40. But then the eldest gets in a very embarrassing situation and the inheritance is gone. So it's the 4 of them sort of fighting over and it's just a really complicated and moving story. I saw a movie in the theater by myself for the first time since I saw It Chapter 1. I saw...
Oh, God, but when was that?
2017, 2018. It's called I Carry You With Me. It's beautiful. It was made by a documentary filmmaker, so it's very documentary-ish. The performances are wonderful. It was a challenging movie. It's subtitled. It's very slow, cinema verite style, but it was a good break from the kinds of movies I've been watching. And then lastly, I've been playing new music. I've been stuck in a 90s rut, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to listen to new stuff. So I am in love with this band Always, spelled with 2 V's instead of a W. I recommend the song Party Police. I am in love with Churches. They're an amazing band, spelled with a V. Everyone's messing up the spelling for SEO purposes so they can get search hits. I recommend the song Good Girls off their latest album. And finally, I discovered through searching that Edie Brickell and New Bohemians have 2 new albums. They were gone for 20 years.
What?
They made 2 new albums, and I highly recommend the track Sleeve. So I will put links to all those on the webpage, but that's my new music. That's it for me. Dan, how have you followed your bliss this month?
You blew me out of the water. I feel like this last month, I've spent so much of my time only on the podcast, but I did find some time to begin watching season 2 of Luther. I think last episode I talked about season 1 of Luther. So I've continued with season 2, and it is really just as great as the first one. He seems to have tempered a little bit, so he's not quite as anger management-y as he was in season 1. But he is still He's not a dirty cop, but he is lenient with his methods. A character in a recent episode says, there's difference between being a dirty cop and getting your hands dirty.
Huh. Okay, good.
I've been in a reading rut. I haven't read much of anything. There's a book called Make Noise by Eric Newsom. Eric Newsom is a podcast producer for NPR and Audible, and he's done a lot of very high audience podcasts. I was most interested in his chapter on finding an audience, because I feel like The Hero's Journey is probably one of the better podcasts that nobody knows about.
Yeah, best kept secret of the podcast world.
So I feel like I would love for us to be able to figure out how to find a bigger audience. So that was kind of my goal with that book. That's pretty much been it. It's just been a lot of work-focused stuff, and not a whole lot of bliss, but I'll work on that for next month.
There's a big missing from both of our side quests, and it's Bosch, the final season, which came out a month and a half ago, and neither of us has watched an episode.
That is correct.
That is unacceptable. We should do that
fail
before the next episode.
Well, I did tweet, do you ever love a show so much that you stop watching it so that you know that there will always be a new episode to watch when you really need a pick-me-up? And that's what I'm doing with Bosch. I'm 2 seasons behind on Bosch now.
Aspirations.
Shall we dip into Act 2 now?
It's on.
Act 2 of The Hero's Journey. Jeff, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is mostly Act 2. It is so long. The film itself is long, but I feel like Act 2 is so long.
Yeah.
But here we go. It begins with the road of trials, or tests, allies, and enemies. Having crossed the first threshold, the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. Robin's allies are many, fortunately for him. He's got Azim, played by Morgan Freeman, Duncan, the now blinded steward of his castle. He meets Marion and Little John and the rest of the merry men of Sherwood Forest. On the enemy's side, we've got the Sheriff of Nottingham, Guy of Gisborne, and then all of the sheriff's dirty cops.
And Mortiana.
Yeah, Mortiana. All right, so tests.
Oh, I think we have some shapeshifters.
Go ahead.
The first one being Marion. She is not an ally right off the bat. You're not quite sure where she stands. She calls them out to Guy of Gisborne that they're stealing her horses. Now, it's kind of a diversion, but she resists Robin's charms at the beginning, and he has to win her over. And then we've got Will Scarlet, played by Christian Slater, one of my favorite actors. Love Christian Slater. Just love him. He changes sides a little bit. Yep. And then Little John and the Merry Men start out as opponents, and Robin has to win them over.
Okay, so tests. Meeting Marion and fulfilling his promise to Peter, who escaped the prison in Jerusalem with Azim and Robin and gave Robin a ring as he was dying, and made Robin promise to return the ring to his sister Marion and protect her. And so this is Robin's goal right now. He goes to their estate, and he has to talk his way past 3 threshold guardians. One of whom pretends to be Marion herself, and there's a humorous but slightly offensive interaction between the two of them, where the fake Marion, who is really the real Marion's handmaid or lady-in-waiting, that's probably the better term, comes into the light, and she's not what Robin expected, and he has a reaction.
Yeah.
And then, after receiving a kick in the yarbles,
oh man,
during a fight with a assailant of some kind who turns out to be the real Marion, Robin gives Peter's ring to her, and then the two of them discuss what Nottingham has done to the land, plundered the land, put so many families into poverty while the king has been on his crusade, and how Marion has been trying to help however she can, feeling that is her duty as the cousin of King Richard. Yeah. And toward the end of this test, Marion says, "You cannot replace my brother." And here, composer Michael Kamen introduces the musical theme that becomes the romance theme and the music for the Academy Award nominated original song, I Do It For You.
I swore to your brother that I would protect you.
You cannot replace my brother.
I don't want to replace him. Marion, I've returned to my home to find it destroyed and my father murdered. And the only explanations for it are the ramblings of an old blind man.
The next test, the spyglass.
Oh, so great!
Which is a callback, I suppose, to Dances with Wolves, where a very similar scene takes place. Azim has a spyglass and is on the wall, and he spies Guy of Gisborne racing toward Marion's castle with a host of troops. And he gives the spyglass to Robin, and Robin looks through it and freaks out and draws his sword and starts stabbing at the air, thinking that Guy of Gisborne is right in front of him when he's really not.
Great comic performance by Kevin Costner.
It's a goofy moment, but there have been several of those already. The movie starts out dark and serious, but throughout there are slapstick moments of comedy relief.
How did your uneducated kind ever take Jerusalem?
God knows.
Robin and Azim and Duncan take a couple of Marion's horses and escape to Sherwood Forest with Guy hot on their heels. Mm-hmm. And Duncan tells Robin that Sherwood Forest is haunted. But Robin says, we either take our chances with the ghosts or we become ghosts ourselves.
Yeah.
And they disappear into the forest with Guy of Gisborne pulling up just short.
Come on, damn you! There are only 3 of them! It's not the men we fear, sir. It's the evil spirits.
That is a pass. They do escape Guy. The next test is meeting John Little and the Merry Men and the river fight, where we see that Napoleon Dynamite was right to want to work on his bow staff skills. John Little says that the river belongs to them, and that if Robin wants to cross, they've got to give him the medallion that he's wearing, which is his family medallion.
They have to pay a tax.
So, yeah, and Robin says, well, you'll have to fight me for it. And they get into a little fight. It's really a 3-bout match, and John Little wins 2 of them.
Yeah.
But Robin ends up the victor with some underhanded trickery and gets to keep his medallion, but also wins the respect of John Little.
Oh, can I pinpoint something before we move on?
Sure.
So the only other thing that I think is a test is while they're at the campfire, John introduces Robin to the men. They ignore Azim. They pass by him. Robin sticks up for him.
Has English hospitality changed so much in 6 years that a friend of mine's not welcome at this table?
But he's a savage, sire.
That he is. But no more than you or I.
And then the other one is that Will Scarlet challenges him, saying, you're the son of a rich devil worshiper. And not only does Robin keep his cool, but Will's the one who runs off. So Robin here is establishing his dominance already in this group. And it's a pass.
Yes, I agree with you. But during that scene also, Robin suggests to the Merry Men that they fight back against the sheriff. And John says, we're just a bunch of farmers. So that part of it is not quite a win yet, but it does plant the seed. Farmers plant the seed. All right, moving on. The next test is at the church. The next morning, after Duncan tells Robin these days the need for mercy is greater than ever, Robin disguises himself as a beggar and enters the church in town. There he meets Marion, who tells him that the sheriff has put a price of 100 gold pieces on Robin's head. And Robin says, well, soon it'll be 1,000. Marion gives Robin some additional information, telling him that the sheriff is mounting an army and has every blacksmith in the city crafting swords and armor.
Yeah.
Robin then meets with the bishop, who he apparently knows personally because the bishop says, I see the boy in the man who stands before me.
Best casting in the movie, that guy.
So the bishop tells Robin that his father did come to him and confess to devil worship because he wanted to die with a clear conscience. But Robin doesn't believe him. And as he rips the door open to storm out, the sheriff and Guy of Gisborne are standing there. There's a little kerfuffle as Robin lashes out with his dagger and slices the sheriff's cheek open. And as Robin escapes by cutting the rope of the chandelier and being launched up into the belfry, the sheriff says,
Loxley! I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon!
To which Robin replies, "Then it begins."
Yes.
And what I saw, and I waffled on this so much.
Yeah.
But what I saw as the last test, and I changed my mind 3 times on whether or not there were more tests after this, but the sheriff and Guy discuss how to deal with Robin. The sheriff also explains why he was going to cut his heart out with a spoon, because it's dull you to it, it'll hurt more.
And Michael Wincott absolutely sets it up so perfectly. Why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe?
Why not something sharp like an axe?
And he's just
like, are you going to carve someone's heart out with an axe?
It's really been bothering him. Like the whole time, the ride back to the castle, he's been thinking, why does that? Why would you?
Yeah.
It's so good.
And so finally, the two decide that the best way to deal with Robin is to turn the public against him.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, Robin is trying to inspire the people in Sherwood.
Right?
Will Scarlet asks, "What would you have us do? Fight armed men on horseback with rocks in our bare hands?" And Robin says, "If need be." But then he stabs Will Scarlet right through the chest. Not really, but with words. He says, "But with the one true weapon that escapes you, Will, courage." And then as Robin walks away, Will tries to throw a dagger into his back, but Robin is warned by the young boy that Robin rescued earlier, Wolf, the son of John Little. Robin shoots Will in the hand, drops the dagger. Will runs off into the forest, and then we get a montage of combat training and the people of Sherwood building their Ewok village. That's what I saw was the end of tests and slipping into approach to the inmost cave.
I just wanted to point out that Robin shoots Will and injures his hand, the same hand that Robin injured when he slices himself over his father's grave. And what we find out about Will later, there's a parallel there that is interesting that connects them.
Wounded hands?
Yeah, wounded hands. And Miss Brotman would have said they're both Jesus.
Good.
And so really this movie is about, anyway, approach to the inmost cave. The hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of his quest is hidden. Now, you mentioned the sequence. That's approach, man. The classic gearing up for battle stage of the approach.
Yeah.
We see the sequence of Robin, the merry men, and the villagers. That's exactly what I wrote, building their Ewok village. And there's a fun piece in the tidbits that connects this sequence to Ewoks. So I look forward to trying to... Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. They're forging arrowheads and swords. They're practicing swordsmanship and archery. And, of course, they get a little better each time until they're expert archers and ready for swordsmanship.
Yep.
And they're collecting riches, too. Robin and the boys start robbing carriages as they pass through the forest. They're stealing gold from the wealthy and distributing it among the people, and the people love him. This is the classic Robin Hood story. And it's swashbuckling, and they're dropping out of trees and popping out of bushes and surprising people. And Robin is charming the ladies into giving up their jewelry. Meanwhile, Nottingham is out of money, and he is pissed. He storms into Mordiana's chambers with his knife and like stabs the pig parts on her and raises the bounty on Robin, but it doesn't work. And there's a great scene where Nottingham abuses he shoots the messenger who's telling him that the people love him, and he says,
"Cancel the kitchen scraps for lepers and orphans. No more merciful beheadings. And call off Christmas."
That is the end of Approach. Yeah, we're pretty close.
God, I hope so.
I have something in Approach, but as I'm looking at my notes and thinking of how you would look at this movie, I think I understand why you have this in the Ordeal. And I'm hoping that this is not where we veer wildly off track. But
It might be.
Let's continue. I will shift this into ordeal because I think you're right.
This is going to be a good episode of On Second Thought, which is the video segment we do where we analyze the episode, where we just, it's like a meta-analysis.
Yeah.
And that's a patron benefit you can get on Patreon.
All right, so let's move to the ordeal, where the hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome his worst fear, and sometimes actually appearing to die. This I had in Approach to the Inmost Cave, and maybe you included the stealing of Friar Tuck's cart in the Approach when you said that Robin and the merry men, are robbing from the rich.
No, I did not.
Okay, so you think that the stealing of Friar Tuck's cart is the beginning of the ordeal?
Yes.
Because Guy of Gisborne is leading that caravan.
Mm-hmm.
Robin and the men ambush them using some pretty sound guerrilla tactics.
Yeah, it's such a great sequence.
They being Robin and the merry men, discover that the wagon contains a treasure chest full of gold coins. And Robin knows that this money was intended for the barons.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't know that yet. He says we have to discover, but that's what it is. Yeah.
But there's no scene showing that discovery. It's just the next scene he tells Marion,
right,
this is what the money was for. So
yeah.
But Robin also recruits Friar Tuck to minister to the people of the forest, and Friar Tuck agrees. He is also a shapeshifter because he is combative at first. He kicks Robin in the face, rides off, and as he's triumphantly taunting Robin, of course he's standing up in his cart looking backward and runs right into a tree branch that knocks him off his wagon.
Tuck is hammered this whole time, by the way. He is just beer slopping down his front. What a great performance.
Now Marion and Sarah, the lady-in-waiting, come to Sherwood Forest to meet with Robin. And little Wolf is practicing his archery and gets a center mass shot. And everybody applauds, but Robin says, "Can you do it when it counts?" amid distraction. And as Wolf takes a second shot, Robin tickles his ear with an arrow. And the shot goes off target, but still gets the target dummy in the neck.
Yeah. Boom.
And then Marion says, "Well, Robin, can you do the same?" There's this humorous scene of him trying to make the shot, but then she blows in his eye right before he's about to make the shot, and the shot goes doesn't even hit anything.
Yeah.
And almost shoots one of his farmer buddies in the butt.
Yeah, nice setting up the archery range with like a dude putting food in a basket right behind the target.
Yeah, there was no concept of downrange safety. Then we transition to nighttime. Marion and Robin are up in one of the Ewok village houses, and he is showing her all of the treasures that they have stolen from the Sheriff of Nottingham and what he intends to do with it. They also have a discussion about his past. Robin reveals that after his mother had died, his father had met another woman. But Robin felt that his father was betraying his mother and demanded that his father leave the woman, which he did. And Marion says, "Robin of the Hood, Prince of Thieves, is he capable of love?" And this is the beginning of their real romance. The calm is interrupted by Wolf shouting that his mother, Fanny, is dying.
Mm-hmm.
And as everybody races to her side, she is in labor. And Azim knows what to do because, remember, he is one of great knowledge. And he is going to help Fanny deliver her baby because if he doesn't, both she and the baby will die. And Friar Tuck objects to this, having a savage helping with this procedure, but Fanny agrees. She actually nods her head that she wants Azim to help. And Azim successfully delivers the baby, saves both the baby and Fanny. Finally, Robin asks Marion to take Duncan back home with her and send word to King Richard about Nottingham's plan. Are we in agreement so far?
No.
No.
You and I are split wider than the arrow that Robin splits in twain. We have diverged deeply at this point.
Okay, then I need you to explain your ordeal to me.
Okay. The ordeal is the capture of Friar Tuck, and here's why. There's an element of the ordeal called hero causes death. Sometimes it's the death of a villain, but often it's the death of one of the lieutenants. This stealing of this treasure is the thing that turns the tide. And so Guy goes back to Nottingham to admit his failure. Great scene where Nottingham is just showing off the Spanish steel that he's having forged. And he says, we can't be made fools of, and I can't have a lieutenant failing me. He runs Guy through with a sword.
This was a surprising scene. I did not expect that to happen. I thought Guy was going to be the junkyard dog throughout the film. For him to be eliminated like this was like, oh.
And then Nottingham says, well, at least I didn't use a spoon. It's another callback. So I'm going to move on to my reward because I think that'll help illuminate why that's the ordeal. And I struggled with this a lot. I struggled with this a lot, but I'm very clear that this is what happens.
Let's do it. I've already shifted horses midstream once.
Yeah.
In this act, I'm willing to do it again if you convince me.
Reward the ultimate boon. Having faced his worst fear, the hero seizes the object of his quest. The literal reward here is treasure, the chest of gold that Guy and his men were carrying. That was the last hope of Nottingham, to pay off the barons so that they would be loyal to him and dethrone King Richard when he returns to England.
Okay.
Revenge of his father means dismantling Nottingham, and he has done that. Maybe unwittingly, but he gets rewarded. He gets the treasure. He also gains an ally in Tuck. Gaining allies can be a reward as well.
Sure.
And he gets his romantic reward as well. As you mentioned, Marion rides into the camp, and Robin shows her around the camp. And as when she's leaving in the morning, she gives him a kiss. That is a reward for his daring do and chivalry. And she's charmed. She's impressed by what he built. She remembers him as the spoiled child who used to burn her hair. And he says earlier in the film, allow that years of war and prison can change a man. And it's a really great line because he's like, wait, you're holding like 8-year-old Robin responsible? Like I've been through war. And she's inspired by his commitment to the people. New life is another reward. And Azim,
okay. All right.
Azim delivers Fanny and John Little's baby. This could not have happened, right? And then the classic campfire scene reward where Robin and his people are having a final night of revelry. That's the celebration before things get dark. So to me, even though it's a weird, not terribly exciting moment, that sequence of capturing Friar Tuck and getting the gold and basically putting the nail in Guy's coffin, that's the turning point. That is the crisis right there.
Okay.
That sends them into the reward.
Yeah. I like it. The way I have my analysis currently laid out, I did not see a reward after what I have as the ordeal.
That was my problem. That's what turned me.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. It is the turning point. That's yes.
Well, that wraps up Act 2 with a bumpy end of Act 2. And I don't know about you, Dan, but I'm ready for some of the Lord's brew.
Oh. Okay.
Let's call Friar Tuck in.
Yeah.
For a beverage break.
Our usual bartender has been replaced temporarily. We have a guest bartender, one Friar Tuck. What does Friar Tuck have in store for you?
Well, Dan, Friar Tuck chose for me a beer because beer,
sure,
ale, mead, those are the drinks of the merry men. So I found a beer called Saint Archer.
I almost picked that
IPA.
up.
I mean, Robin Hood's basically a saint, and he's an archer, so it seemed only appropriate. And of course, India Pale Ales were invented by the British. It is very pale. It is not hazy. Very bubbly. Thin head. Not a lot of body on that head. It's going to dissipate rapidly, I think. A very mild bouquet. I smell a little bit of fruitiness. It doesn't smell like it's going to be super hoppy. It's a 7% ABV. Here we go. I'm taking a sip. It's a very unassuming IPA. Like the Modern Times Dungeon Map, I would recommend this to a first-time IPA drinker. It's very mellow.
Low IBU?
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna look it up, but I'm gonna guess it's 60.
It's not on the can?
Yeah, IBU is not on the can.
That seems like something that should be on the can, particularly for hoppy beers. It seems like it would be a selling point.
Yeah.
That's marketing material. If you've got a beer drinker who really likes high hop beers.
66 IBU. So I was very, very
You were close.
Yeah.
You were close.
It says everything you'd expect from a great American India Pale Ale. Hop forward, yet civilized. I'd agree with that. Bitter but balanced. Amarillo and Mosaic hops ring loud and clear with citrus tropical notes that are backed up by a chorus of other flavors. Centennial, Chinook, Columbus, Simcoe, and Citra. I would agree with that. It's a very good description of this beer. I'm going to enjoy this. This is a good drinkable IPA. It like even on a hot day where you might want a lighter pilsner, like a Corona, this could substitute if you're a beer snob. So I would say I recommend St. Archer.
Maybe we say enthusiast or aficionado rather than snob.
So I use that term affectionately because I consider myself one. So
gotcha.
I don't mean that in a derogatory way. If you're if you're kind of like I really don't want to pull a Budweiser out of the cooler, and you want to bring a 6-pack of St. Archer, I would recommend it. And it was $10.99 for a 6-pack, which for grocery store prices is really good. So I recommend it.
All right. Well, Friar Tuck, I don't know what's going on with him, but he's got something different for me. He has for me a Canadian whiskey called Hunt and Gather.
Okay.
This is a 15-year limited edition release.
Whoa.
The bottle says, the mission of Hunt and Gather is to seek out and bring to light rare barrels and lost batches of beautifully matured spirits from acclaimed distilleries. So it seems like they go to distilleries that maybe have some leftovers or something that, I don't know, they acquire. They acquire and redistribute, much like Robin Hood and the Merry Men. So this is lot 2, a 15-year high corn whiskey made by one of Western Canada's pioneering distilleries. Now, I tried to find the identity of that Western Canadian distillery and couldn't. So I don't know who actually made this, and it doesn't say on the bottle. But the breakdown, this is 79% corn, 13% rye, 8% malted barley, and I'm going to need a nap after this because this is a 121 proof whiskey.
Whoa.
60.5% alcohol by volume. It is the color of maple syrup. The smell, I'm in a doctor's office and the doctor has just swabbed my arm with isopropyl alcohol in preparation for an injection of some kind. There is nothing. I smell nothing but the nose hair singeing burn of pure alcohol. Oh, God, I can't even get my nose very close before it starts to burn. And I'm wondering if it sits for a while. Maybe I swirl it around, let some of that alcohol vapor escape the glass. I am using a rocks glass, so it's a very wide mouth. So that should help mitigate the path of alcohol vapors into my face. But
is it like a wine? Should you have let it rest for 30 minutes before
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever had a whiskey this high proof before. Not that I can recall. I've had barrel-proof whiskeys before, but I don't know.
Is it? It almost sounds like moonshine with that much corn content.
Wow.
I wish you could see him.
Even a sip burns my nose. Just sipping it.
I wish you could see Dan's face on the camera, and his face is bright red.
The retro nasal is... I feel like I need water. Damn. Okay.
Maybe drop
Let me try
an ice
another
cube.
one. Let me try another one. I do have an ice cube here. I wanted to give it one more waterless sip to see if get a pure sense of it before I add water. Okay. Definitely some corn sweetness there. I do get that now that my head has recovered from that initial blast. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it. I have a tiny glass with a dash of water. I'm going to add a few drops, swirl that around a bit, and see if that helps separate the oils from the whiskey. That'll cause those oils to rise to the top. Oh, yeah. See if that changes the flavor. High oil whiskeys will generally benefit from a couple of drops of water. It's a little peppery now. It's still got that corn sweetness, but after adding a few drops of water, my tongue buzzes quite a bit more than it did before. Without water, the whiskey was smooth. It had an alcohol burn, but in general, it was smooth. Adding a few drops of water, I feel like electricity on my tongue.
Wow.
It's very weird. Okay, so now I'm going to add a full ice cube.
Your palate is so sophisticated. I love
No, it is
hearing
not.
you describe
It really is not.
what you taste. Well, compared to me, I'm like, beer good, hoppy bitter. Next.
Okay, so adding a full ice cube is going to dilute this quite a bit more, which kind of is probably what I should do anyway because it's such high proof. And probably this will change over time as the ice cube melts.
Maybe you can give us an update after the road back.
So that's that. That's Hunt and Gather. Not cheap, but it was on sale yesterday at Bevmo. One day only, 50% off. So
Wow.
It's normally about $80 or $90 for a bottle.
I've never seen you respond this way to a whiskey. I wish you could see the video, patrons. It's pretty awesome.
Here's another thing. I didn't have a chance to eat breakfast before we started recording. So
good night.
All that's in me right now is 2 cups of coffee. And now I'm putting a serving of 121 proof whiskey in my body. Let's get Act 3 done. Quick.
Listeners, this is how we abuse our bodies for your entertainment. I hope you're happy.
Act 3 begins with the road back, or the magic flight, where the hero is pursued by vengeful forces disturbed when he seized the object of his quest. I have a very, very different road back because we haven't even discussed what I originally put as my ordeal.
Was your ordeal the Battle of Sherwood Forest?
Yes, the attack of the Celts on the woodland hideout, because it's the first big fight.
Yeah.
It is a crisis.
Yeah. No, that was my original selection too.
The Sheriff of Nottingham has paid Celts to whom he is not a fan of, but he recognizes their use in this sense, much like the Longshanks in Braveheart.
Right.
And sends them into Sherwood Forest to attack and destroy Robin's hideout.
Right.
There is also a hero appearing to die moment where Robin is swinging across on one of their ropes, and the rope, which is on fire, breaks, and he plunges into a pile of hay that is also on fire. And all you see is his medallion, like resting on top of the hay, like that has fallen off of his neck.
It is one of those things where, like, oh, whoops, we designed the Ewok forest. All it takes is some fire arrows. We didn't think of that.
And really the only reason I had pinned that as the ordeal, well, I mean, because it's the first major battle.
Yeah.
And I saw it as a crisis because, I mean, it is. It's the first time that the Merry Men are really under attack, and many of them are killed during this battle. And then there's also the appearing to die moment. So
on first
that's
watch,
why
I was
had
like,
it as the ordeal.
Yeah, I was like Sherwood Forest battle.
Yeah.
And then assault on the castle to save the hanging guys. Boom. That was my first watch. I was like, yeah, that's it. So I had the same thoughts that you did.
And the fight in Sherwood Forest takes place 3/4 of the way through the film. So that was another thing where I was like, is
Delayed.
this just super delayed crisis that Vogler talks about in The Writer's Journey?
Yeah.
So that's where my head was. But I do like your placement of the hijacking of Friar Tuck's cart and that chest full of gold coins, the elimination of Guy of Gisborne. The sheriff is now absolutely desperate.
You know, this might be, I don't know that we've ever unpacked the delayed crisis thing. So maybe we just take a minute to put that in, because I feel like this is a perfect example of the confusion that conversation can have. So if you picture a rising line, like a graph with a mountain going up to the peak, that peak would be the crisis, the ordeal. And then the graph goes down a little bit, and then there's a peak for the resurrection, and then it goes back down to zero, to ordinary world. Well, if you picture a delayed crisis, instead of that tent pole being right in the center, it shifts to the right toward the end of the movie. So instead of being right dead center, at 1 hour in a 2-hour movie, it's like at 1:20. And so when we're watching these movies, you're watching streaming mostly, so you can pause and see the running time, right, of the movie. You can see where that line is. You kind of start to orient yourself like, oh man, that Battle of Sherwood Forest is right where a delayed crisis would be. So it's deceptive. And the other thing is that we're always looking for the hero appears to die, but that death can also be a witness of death. It can also be the death of a villain or of a lieutenant. So that's the death in this ordeal as I see it. Even though it's not, it's almost a humorous kind of winning moment until we cut back to Nottingham running him through. So that there's a little explanation of delayed crisis.
And all of this that you just mentioned is directly from our study of Christopher Vogler's book, The Writer's Journey. This is where he discusses all of this.
Yeah, because in Campbell, there's no running time of a myth. You know what I mean?
Because he's talking about ancient mythology and religious origin stories and things like that. The running time was as long as the storyteller around the campfire decided to take to tell that story.
Yeah.
So when Vogler modernized that theory and applied it specifically to filmmaking, then he introduced the concept of applying these segments based on the standard general runtime of a film, which is, 90 to 120 minutes, except this film is 2.5 hours. Anyhow. All right, so we are in Act 3 now, and we are talking about the road back. So then if I am shifting my analysis on the fly,
I love it.
We are now going to talk about the Celts. No.
Mm-mm.
Wait. Okay, so Marion spent the night in Sherwood Forest, and she and Robin are making lovey-dovey eyes at each other, and she leaves in the morning. Nottingham goes to Mortiana the Witch, and he says the barons are coming in 10 days. We've got to get this Robin Hood situation handled. And she says that he needs to sire a child of royal blood, that this will help solidify his usurpment. Is that a word? Of the throne, and Marion, being a cousin of the king, seems to be the only viable option, at least in terms of characters that have been introduced in the film. Robin, in his second favor to Marion, says, please write to the king and let him know what is happening here.
Right.
And she does that, but the bishop is corrupt. And instead of having the message delivered, his man, who is with Marion's lady in waiting, Sarah, who was supposed to deliver it, knocks Sarah out, steals the letter, takes it back to the sheriff, and now the sheriff knows that Marion is working on behalf of Robin.
Yes.
Then he sends his men to abduct Marion. Duncan, whom Marion is taking care of now at Robin's request, that was the first favor he asked of her, escapes and rides to Sherwood, but leads the sheriff's men directly to the hideout, and this is when the Celts attack.
Yes.
Flaming arrows.
Oh, man.
Catapults firing balls of flaming pitch or something. Just demolishes the Sherwood hideout.
The ATSTs are crunching through the forest, just shooting their Ewoks are flying.
Will Scarlet, Wolf, and 9 others are captured, and the rest only escape because Robin distracts the assailants by dumping the treasure out onto the forest floor. So these Celts who are supposed to attack suddenly like, oh, free money. Let's stop fighting and take this. And then as Fanny and her newborn baby are trapped on a flaming treehouse, Robin swings across the gap to rescue her, gets her to safety. Robin tries to swing back, but the rope's on fire. The rope breaks, and this is when he falls into the flaming hay pile. And this is why I thought this was, this is totally the ordeal, because now Robin appears to die.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, the road back continues. If we're shifting this. So this makes the road back an incredibly long sequence.
It's very long.
So very long. The sheriff then confronts Marion, tells her that he knows that she was working to warn King Richard. Mm-hmm. He tells her he will spare the lives of the captured woodsmen and the children and Sarah only if she agrees to marry him.
Yeah. Basically, another way to look at it is he threatens to kill a bunch of kids if she doesn't marry him.
My God, he says, I can't have them growing up as enemies.
He's been amusing, but he is a sociopath.
The sheriff also produces the medallion that Robin wears and claims to Marion that Robin is dead.
That thing needs a better closure because John Little's able to remove it from Robin's neck off camera with a staff, and then he loses it in the back. Like, dude, get a proper closure for that medallion. Seriously, it's so important to you.
It's like the one ring on the chain that Frodo wears around his neck. It's just constantly, medallions fall off of people constantly.
The whole movie would have been changed if they could have if you knew how to wear a necklace properly.
Do better, costume department.
Do better.
We're not really blaming costume departments.
I wonder if the props and costume people are like, oh, this is so stupid. We're going to get blamed for this. God damn it.
Yeah.
Dan and Jeff.
Like, I mean, we have the clasp. It works. Like, why do people keep making it look like it's falling off? Okay, so anyhow, we're closing out the road back now.
Right.
The sheriff visits all of the captured merry men, threatens them with bodily harm and execution. Will volunteers to go back to Robin on behalf of the sheriff, working with the sheriff, conspiring with the sheriff to eliminate Robin.
He's a trusting fool. He'll believe me, and if he doesn't, he'll kill me. Then you've lost nothing.
Back at the ruins of the Sherwood Ewok village, Robin and Azim bury Duncan. Robin is distraught. He thinks he has brought ruin upon these woodsmen. He says, my pride destroyed these people. Will Scarlet stumbles out of the forest into the clearing, and he and Robin have a discussion after John Little threatens to beat him to death. But in that fight, John Little rips Will Scarlet's shirt apart to reveal a dozen wounds across Will Scarlet's chest and abdomen. Obviously, Will Scarlet has been tortured.
Yeah.
And this softens John Little. The message that Will Scarlet is here to deliver is that the captured woodsmen, including the young son of John Little and Fanny, are to be hanged, although he says hung. People are hanged, pictures are hung, at noon the next day, as a part of the wedding ceremony of the sheriff and Marion. So we are bringing to a head all of the threads of this story.
Right.
But we're not done yet. Will Scarlet also reveals that he is the half-brother of Robin of Locksley. He is the son, the product of the union between Robin's father and that other woman that Robin's father spent time with following the death of his wife. That Robin was so upset about and said, you need to dump that woman because you are betraying my mother's memory.
Yeah.
Lord Locksley succumbed to his young son's demands, which left at the time, infant Will Scarlet, probably, although I don't think Robin knew that union resulted in a child.
Right.
Left them in ruin. They were in poverty for their whole life. Will Scarlet has known nothing but struggle. And he has been angry at Robin this entire film. Robin says, "What have I done to you? Did I wrong you in another life? Why do you hate me so much?" And then Will reveals this secret.
Christian Slater, he just came off 1989 was Heather, 1990 was Pump Up the Volume. This was possibly the biggest film he'd ever done. He was moving away from a starring role to a supporting role. And he is so good in that scene. The tears and of rage and release and sadness in his eyes.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner says, "I have a brother," and embraces him and it holds his fast. Such a tender scene between two men.
Yeah.
In this very testosterone-y brave movie, and they are just so tender. The performances are so good. I love Christian Slater. If I could meet one actor, I would meet Christian Slater, and I would be absolutely speechless because I love him so much. And he's great in this movie. And that moment, he elevates Kevin Costner's performance, and Kevin Costner is great. Okay, and I'm done.
I have more reason to hate you than anyone. But I found myself daring to believe in you. What I want to know, brother, is will you stay with us and finish what you've started?
I feel like Will, based on his dialogue with Robin in this scene, never really intended to betray him.
I agree.
I think he was pulling one over on the sheriff.
I think more than that, he turns Robin from despair into commitment.
Yeah, this scene is the spark that sends the film and Robin and the remaining merry men into the final battle.
Yeah.
Azim is mixing some kind of explosive.
Mm-hmm.
We can't say gunpowder because guns won't exist for another 700 years, but he is mixing explosive powder, much to the delight of Friar Tuck.
He didn't need to make it to defend the village, though, during that montage. He's like, nah, we'll be fine. Saved it for now. Well, that was interesting to me.
Come on. They didn't.
Little plot hole.
No, they didn't know. So how was that a plot hole? He didn't know that the village. They thought they were safe. They thought they were safely hidden within Sherwood Forest.
They were preparing for battle. They were making swords. They were making arrows. They were training for battle. They were absolutely training for battle.
Not in their hideout. They were going out to.
I think you're rationalizing. He could have had that gunpowder.
What are they going to do? Like surround the village with explosives? That seems a little unsafe.
Well,
you
they could have launched bombs.
You only use explosives in last ditch.
Like in Braveheart, where they oil the battlefield and then send fire arrows, they could have put barrels of explosive gunpowder and blown up the bad guys.
Yeah, okay, so like in Braveheart, did all of the Scots surround their villages with flaming oil to protect themselves from? No, they did not. They did not. They waited until they had a battleground that they had identified as the theater of operation, and then they set up their explosives, just like they do in this film.
Convenient screenwriting.
Listeners, please tweet at us. And do you think that Azim failed Robin and the Merry Men by not putting explosives around their very flammable
Took the
home?
Time to deliver one baby. Instead of making gunpowder, dozens die. Just saying. Deep breaths. We can move on.
I can't.
It's okay.
I can't anymore.
Agree
I can't
to
anymore.
disagree.
I shouldn't be expected to. Your segment, Resurrection. Go.
Resurrection. The hero faces death one more time in a final battle or showdown. This time the danger is on the broadest scale. On the day of the hangings, all the men and Fanny get into position. Friar Tuck and Azim, who is dressed in bandages like a leper, roll in with kegs not of beer, but of the gunpowder. Will, Scarlet, and Robin enter the square in disguise. John and Fanny are smuggling in weapons. Oh, by the way, there's a line from this movie that I say all the time to Ami that I didn't realize was from this movie. So I always say to her, I love you, always have, want to marry you. I say that to her from Braveheart, and I say, hello, my lover. and I couldn't remember what it's from, but it's from this. After John delivers this bundle of firewood with swords hidden inside, and Fanny hauls it up, and she sets it next to her, and she's sort of subtly dropping swords over the wall into the dirt. And a guard comes up. It's like, hey, what are you doing? What's that? She's like, oh, it's firewood. I just love to see hangings. And John throws the guard over the wall. And Fanny's response is,
hello, my lover.
Anyway, I love that scene. So the hangman is tightening the nooses, and everyone's in place for the plan. But then Wolf, who was present when Will said, I'll betray Robin, spots Will in the crowd. Oops. And Will's trying to say, like, no, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm on your side. Wolf's like, nope, jumps on him, starts yelling traitor, draws attention to the guards. And so Nottingham says, string him up with the others. But there's no more room on the gallows. So the hangman straps his head, like ties his head to one of the barrels of gunpowder. So now the tension is ratcheted up because the plan they had is over. Now it's improv time, baby. So the hangman kicks the stool out from under Wolf. And it's like, oh my God, they're killing the kid. So now everyone's like,
the kid goes first.
Yep, kid goes first. Like you would think you'd save that for the finale if you were Nottingham, but nope. Wolf goes first. John Little flips out. That's his son. Rushes down to the courtyard. Like, plan be damned. I'm going to save my boy.
Yep.
And then Robin, with his expert archery, fires shots and severs the rope. And Wolf drops. He's going to live. And
how, by the way, my understanding of hanging is that when you drop the victim, the rope is supposed to snap the neck. It's not a strangling. It is a neck snapping. So
that's right.
And I see this in movies all the time where this type of scene happens and someone is hanging there by the rope around their neck and they're gasping, they're being strangled.
Yeah.
Is this a convention invented by Hollywood, or is hanging something that I don't understand?
I think I've seen two kinds of hangings, which is like in the old westerns, there's like a trap door in the
gallows,
and they fall so far that they snap. But that stool was only like a foot high.
Sure.
And so the worst kind of hanging is when the rope slowly cuts off the blood to your head, and so you die slower. And that seems like Nottingham would be like, yeah, I want them to suffer because I'm making an example of them. So I kind of buy it in this story that it isn't the next snapping time.
Yeah, we're also looking at like 700 years between the gallows of the Wild West and this period of time. So yeah, maybe they hadn't really developed the more humane way of hanging.
And earlier in the movie, the Sheriff of Nottingham says no more merciful beheadings. So maybe his shift is not only are we not going to behead them, but we're going to hang them to death slowly. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Where was I? Robin severs the rope and saves Wolf, and then a bunch of things happen at once. And I may get these out of order, but who cares? Azim has barrels placed all around the courtyard. He fires an arrow and blows up one of the barrels. Boom, and it's mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Bull drops the portcullis to keep the guards out. The hangman is like kicks out all the other stools in rapid succession.
Right.
So now everyone's panicking. So John Little runs up and like shoulder bashes the gallows and knocks it over so that they can all the hanging men can all touch the ground. Just as the executioner is bringing down the axe on Will's neck, Robin shoots him with a fire arrow right in the chest. He drops his axe.
Right in the face.
Saves his brother. Oh, in the face. You're right. Right in the face.
Shoots him in the face.
Nottingham, realizing that he is rapidly losing control of the situation, grabs Marion and drags her into the castle. The crowd is dispersing in panic. So everything's going wrong for everybody. They've saved the hanging men, but it's like Marion is now the new goal, right? So Azim stands on the wall holding his bow and scimitar, and he calls out to the crowd to join Robin Hood.
Yes.
And because he's Morgan Freeman, they are so inspired that they immediately abandon their flight and take up arms against Nottingham's men.
Yeah.
Because the portcullis is down, Robin can't get through to get into the castle to get to Marion. So he has his men line up a catapult, and Robin and Azim get on the catapult And Will throws the lever, and they go flying over the wall. It's more swashbuckling. I love it. And then we get the great line from Christian Slater.
Oh, fuck me, he cleared it.
It's like the most Christian Slater moment.
It's, for me, it's the at the end that sells it. That is a Christian Slater-ass Christian Slater line right there.
Fuck me, cleared it. Yeah, it's the I actually wrote that in my notes. So Nottingham drags Marion into like a dusty chapel, unused chapel room in the castle, and the bishop comes in, and Robin and Azim pursue them, but they come up against a locked door, the bane of every Dungeons and Dragons player. And they grab
Critical Role knows the plight.
Yes, that's right.
Doors.
Vox Machina cannot open doors. So they get the statue that of Nottingham that he had made for himself that someone graffitied with a scar after Robin slashed his face. And they're trying to bash down the door with the statue, but the head breaks off. Meanwhile, the priest has married them, Princess Bride style. Get to the end.
I wrote exactly that, Princess Bride.
See, we're back in sync, man. And now, so this is a troubling scene. So now Nottingham is trying to rape Marion. And it's played comically. There's this one shot where Nottingham puts his feet between Marion's like legs and they split open.
Yeah.
And she's screaming, you can take this body, but it won't be me. I mean, it's just like, it's a terrible scene. And I wish they hadn't gone comedy there, because I wish they'd gone, okay, this guy's a psycho and he needs to die.
Well, I wonder if they went comedy because they were trying to make it less disturbing. But by making it a comedic scene, they make it more disturbing.
I agree with that.
You cannot sugarcoat a rape scene. That is not possible. And any attempts to do so only make it worse.
It seems like they tried that much later than it should have been acceptable. You certainly couldn't make that scene happen in a movie now. It would be socially unacceptable.
I have a feeling 30 years ago.
Yeah, but I feel like even in the 90s, rape couldn't be funny.
During my research of this film, I read a lot of articles, and none of them mentioned this scene.
Well, let us be the first then to condemn the funny quote unquote rape scene. Yeah. Okay, but Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
No.
Mary Stuart Masterson.
Oh, yes. Okay, right.
Mary Stuart Elizabeth
Mastrantonio, by the way. I've always said her name as Mastriantonio. I've been getting her name wrong for since The Abyss. I've never known her name. Mastrantonio.
Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is the only one who's taking this scene seriously, and her performance is terrifying and great and good for her. Outside the door, Mortiana appears and confronts Azim in another of these close-up, wide-angle shots that makes Mortiana look even more terrifying, and Azim stabs her with a spear right in the chest.
Just skewers her
and goes right back to bashing the door. So we think her destiny is fulfilled. And then Robin, in another swashbuckling moment, bursts in through a stained glass window, and he has a final swashbuckling duel with Nottingham. And Nottingham has Lord Loxley's sword that he's fighting Robin with. So it's like,
I'm going to kill you with your father's sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you watch closely, there's a shot of Robin near the window, and Alan Rickman's hand is in the foreground. And he does this thing with his fingers that's very reminiscent of Professor Snape when he says, Harry Potter, our new celebrity. It's like a thing that he does with his fingers. It's worth freeze framing because it's such a call forward. Alan Rickman in this scene, in the duel, is hilarious and nefarious. I love his performance in this movie. Cut to Friar Tuck, the other man of the cloth, confronting the bishop, throwing him out of the window. He gets his comeuppance. Finally...
Hold the phone.
Yeah.
Friar Tuck catches the bishop with the stolen gold, and before he chucks the bishop out the window, puts a sack of 30 pieces of silver on top of the bundle in his arms. And 30 pieces of silver was the reward Judas received for betraying Jesus.
Biblical justice, baby. Yeah, it's a great scene where one corrupt religious nut murders another. Finally, Robin, with some intermittent help from a very clever and resourceful Marion, overcomes Nottingham and runs him through with the dagger that Nottingham gave Marion, which Marion then, quote unquote, donated to the cause. And Alan Rickman has this amazing death scene. He crawls toward the window and he's looking out into the light and then he has so many amazing death scenes. I mean, Die Hard, Harry Potter. He and Alan Tudyk have the best death scenes. They die in nearly everything.
And Sean Bean. I think that's the triumvirate right there.
Yes, you're right, Sean Bean. Okay, so we think everything's fine, but then Mortiana bursts in. She's alive, and she comes at Robin.
In very stereotypical evil witch fashion.
Yes, right. She's rushing at Robin, but Azim appears and hurls his scimitar like a throwing knife, ending the crone once and for all. And finally, after all this opportunity he's had to save Robin's life, finally he fulfills his vow.
Yeah. Can we talk about how Robin completely chokes in this moment?
Yeah.
He has reclaimed his father's sword from the Sheriff of Nottingham's corpse and is holding it. All you've got to do is thrust, brother.
In his defense,
and you're done.
In his defense, he's never seen Mortiana, and so he doesn't even know if she exists. So all of a sudden, this crazy
old lady
crone comes running into the room. He's like, "What the hell?" Is like I think we can give him a moment of shock there.
You know what? I will acquiesce. That is an excellent point. He has never seen
terrifying.
her. All it is this crazy old lady running into the room at him. He has no idea what's going on.
Who the hell is that?
I don't think if I were holding a sword and a crazy old lady ran at me that my initial response would be to run her through. You are correct, Jeff of Fullerton. I will...
A split second of doubt is all it took.
Yes.
And Azim... with that scimitar, boom,
yeah,
she's dead. That's the end, at last, of Resurrection.
Which brings us to the heartwarming finale, Freedom to Live, or the return with the elixir. Having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. The tyrannical Sheriff of Nottingham has been defeated. The barons that he was trying to bribe to join his cause have fled. And Robin and Marion are to be married in a forest ceremony. And as Friar Tuck is about to conclude the ceremony, he does the whole, if anyone objects to this union, speak now. And we hear a familiar voice. Oh, that was awful. I can't do
that. That was like Kevin Costner's impression of Sean Connery, who, by the way, uses his normal Scottish accent. So Sean Connery failed too because he didn't do an English accent.
No, you know what? Sean Connery said, "I'm Sean Connery. I don't have to do an accent here." So
yes,
we hear very Scottish Sean Connery, Sir Sean Connery, arrive in the role of King Richard, the Lionheart.
That's right.
And he says, "I will not allow this union to proceed unless I can give the bride away. Release the white doves. Break the fourth wall, Friar Tuck. Roll credits. Grab your microphone, Bryan Adams, and sing your Academy Award-nominated original song. This movie is done." More movies, not to mention every other medium, have been made about Robin Hood than any other character in cinematic history.
Unbelievable.
And Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is certainly one of them.
Come on, man. You poop on this movie. It's a fun
It
movie.
is.
You're a dick.
It's a fun movie.
I love this movie.
And that's great.
Love it.
No, it's tons of fun. It's got its flaws, but it almost made $400 million, so it struck a chord with people. Maybe I should have gone with my gut, though, and selected the Errol Flynn Adventures of Robin Hood. I hope Cassia from Ebon Hawk will forgive me for that failure, but the poll also included the Disney animated version, and that came in second place.
Almost won.
Prince of Thieves won by 1 vote. So, my fellow Americans, if you think your vote doesn't count, my God, please vote.
Listeners, thank you for joining us.
What?
Listeners, it's just an opportunity for me to do more Sean Connery, so I'm going to do it.
Well, but Sean Connery, as you mentioned last episode, played Robin Hood in the movie Robin and Marion.
1976.
Yeah.
Listeners, thank you for joining us. If you are not yet a supporter of the podcast,
Yeah, okay. You belong in this movie with this wild variation of accent you're doing.
Go to patreon.com/heroesjourney. Becoming a supporter grants you benefits like access to bonus audio and video content, and more importantly, the right to vote on the subject of future episodes.
We would also like to thank all patrons who make this show possible, including our demigod patrons, Scott Sanford, Ricky Garvin, John Peterson Jr., Jeff Scott, Joseph Wilbur, Michelle Calderon, Ami Garvin, and Salathiel Jones.
Special thanks to Dean Ethington for designing our logo, Taylor Jordan for composing the Hero's Journey theme, and Jason Dorff for the episode artwork.
Links to their portfolio.
Holy shit. What is happening?
Figure we'll bounce back and forth.
I'm the one with the 121 proof alcohol.
Links to their portfolios can be found on the About page of heroesjourneypodcast.com.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, copyright 1991 Morgan. I was about to say Morgan Freeman. 1991 Morgan Creek Productions, Inc. Morgan Creek, by the way, took the opening riff of Michael Kamen's theme for this film as their little musical cue for their film logo following this movie, and Warner Brothers, Inc.
Thank you for listening. Until next time.
Journey on. Journey on.
Why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe?
Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more.